ladies and to the July 5th right commission meeting.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you're breaking up.
Mayor, you're breaking up.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the roll call, and then I'll ask that we have a motion to allow him to appear virtually at this meeting. So, Commissioner Henry? Present. Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Paris?
Here.
Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Commissioner May?
Here.
Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry?
Here.
Okay. And then if I can have a motion to allow.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner May to allow you to appear virtually.
And just for the record, that's based on the statement that the mayor already made tonight's CRA meeting.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have a motion. We have a second. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the June 7th, 2023 City Commission meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so that was a motion by Commissioner May and a second by Commissioner Cantu. Do we have any questions or comments on the? Okay. All those approved say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion passes 7-0. And you're up.
Honorable Mayor, Commissioners,
All right.
we do have some additions for the commission meetings changes. We're adding to item number 8K, Bike Week sponsorship funds, $500 to the Florida East Coast Supersonics Track and Field Club from Ken Strickland, $250 to Florida East Coast Supersonics Track and Field from Commissioner Paris, $250 to Florida East Coast Supersonics Track and Field from Commissioner Stacy Cantu, $250 for Florida East Coast Supersonics Track and Field Club from Commissioner Juanita May, $200 to the Parks and Recreation Department to cover costs for the July 4th parade from Commissioner Stacy Cantu. We're adding addendum item AL to the consent agenda in the following addition to $500 donation from ARPA funds to the Daytona Express from Commissioner Ken Strickland. Item 9F, Far Lane Plan Development and General PDG rezoning proposed height is 60 feet, but was listed as 45 feet for the medical office building. A memo is on the dais for your review. These concludes our changes, Mayor.
Motion to approve the agenda with the said changes.
Okay, so that was a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner May.
All right. Motion in a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on. Item number 6, we have no presentation tonight, so we're going to move on to item number 7. This is citizen comments, and during this time, citizens have the opportunity to address the City Commission on any item on the consent agenda. I have 2 speakers, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. With regard to 8D, the mobile stage, $180,000. Will we get enough use out of it? It's a very high price. We built the Daisy Stocking band shell with the purpose of having music there. We have the band shell on the beach side. We have the band shell at the riverfront. So we have all these locations for music and what this is supposed to do. Can we have a presentation of the need for it? I don't see it, but there might be. And I just feel awkward paying $180,000 after we've put so much money, especially the new $2 million in the daisy stocking. So, and secondly, again, I would like to know, is that $2,000 rent on East ISB on our 6 properties, is that going to go into the general fund? Since it's CRA property, is it going to go into the CRA funds? Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment in regards to that stage. We have several opportunities to rent stages for different things that we do, not at those particular venues that he's identified. And we have citizens who put on programming that need stages. And we had a situation most recently where we were supporting our Fresh Book Festival, and staff were calling to take the stage from that event to another event because we didn't have a stage at another location. So we need to own our own stage. We need to be able to set up anywhere we want to set up, or where a citizen would like to host something and actually have a nice stage to be able to present whatever programming they're presenting the community. And I think this is an excellent opportunity. It would be something that would be rented, so eventually it would pay for itself.
I agree with that, Commissioner Reed. Also, we have events downtown that are getting bigger and bigger. We have 2 annual events. We're going to 3 and 4 on a regular basis now. We have 21 events downtown that could be even bigger throughout the year supporting the Corps.
Okay. Our next speaker is Ann Ruby.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I have a comment on 8L. I see that there's $40,000 being given to the Brown and Brown Esplanade, specifically towards, quote, construction of a shade pavilion. I question giving $40,000 to an entity that is already getting reimbursed $800,000 a year by the city for capital improvements. And I would also request that the city be particularly aware that they don't ever come back and claim these sunshades or shade pavilions for a capital improvement reimbursement in the future. Thank you.
Okay. That was my final speaker for the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment on that one as well.
any comment from the committee?
Yes, sir. I totally agree with Ms. Ruby that we do need to be mindful of the things that the city owns in regards to this partnership. However, there are a lot of things that are starting to happen at the pavilion, and we need to cover our citizens. It's hot out there. If you all would have been there yesterday when we had that little 4th of July parade, I was soaked, and we were only outside for like an hour. I went to the pavilion recently just to go visit the Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune statue. One of my colleagues that graduated from Bethune-Cookman with me, I wanted to see that statue, and there was a dinner being set up on the pavilion, on the lawn, by some organization or citizens. And I think we just need to be mindful. It is hot outside, you all, and we need to cover ourselves. It is no joke. Strokes are serious. Heat strokes are serious.
I'm going to contribute to that, Commissioner Reed. So I've been paying attention to the events. I run through the park. I walk through the park. I have clients to do the same. We have an older population, a younger population, a teen population. We have pets. We have dogs walking throughout the park, which we highly encourage. We've now moved our farmers market as well, and so now they can possibly have some coverage as well, which will help. But I've noticed that when we did the children's event, the children brought the grandparents, brought the strollers, and they were hot. And that was just the beginning of the summer. And I suspect we're going to have more of these types of events.
Okay, and of course, I concur. I think the for all the reasons that you all have stated, it's a good investment, and I concur. Do we have any other comments or questions?
No.
All right. Do we have a motion
No.
to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner Cantu.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 9, which is our public hearings. Item number 9A is the City Manager's Office Economic and Strategic Opportunities Ordinance amending the criteria for the Economic Development Advisory Board. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending ordinance number 97-90 as amended by ordinance number 13-275 to revise membership requirements of the Economic Development Advisory Board to provide for appointment of up to 2 members who are owners of businesses located within the city but are not city residents, and all remaining members who are city residents of the city, and providing an effective date.
So move.
I have a motion by Commissioner
All right,
Cantu, second by Commissioner May.
Okay.
And I
Do
do
we
have
have
a
any
speaker.
speakers?
I do have one speaker, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vernon Weatherholtz.
Okay.
Vern Weatherholtz, 3 Granville Circle, Daytona Beach. You know, I have a problem with this. You know, on the Economic Board, I think there's enough residents in the city to man the boards. And when we get people from outside, I just have a problem against it. I think that the decisions that's made for the city should be made by residents. Personally, I'm now on the planning board, and I just submitted my application to the city clerk to be on the board because there's certain members, there's certain requirements that they ask for on the board. Certain, business people, money managers, engineers, general contractors that have businesses in the city. I happen to meet all the criteria. And I'm a little lax. I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to realize it, but I've been on numerous boards here in the city. Daytona Beach is a great city, and I think that the people that live here should be on the boards. As yourself, the city commissioners, you have to live here to be a city commissioner. So why shouldn't you have to live here to be on a board? And if they can't, I think that as citizens, we should be able to go out and recruit people that live in the city, have a business in the city, and meet the requirements. And I thank you for your time.
Are you on the Economic Board?
I just put in my application today,
You did, okay. I was just
and I
curious.
talked to Betty and the city clerk.
He's currently on the planning
Okay.
board, but he did submit an application
Okay.
for the Economic Advisory Board.
Gotcha.
Because, see, I already,
Okay, and then Economic Board, I'm done, thank you. Agreed, I think the vote was just one that disagreed about, am I correct on that?
Oh, for the changes, you mean?
Correct.
I don't know, but I believe so.
I believe so. And I know 4 of those are,
There's Jeff.
hi Jeff, 4 of those are my residents in my zone, and I know they're having a hard time. I know recently they weren't able to have a quorum, correct?
Yeah, that was a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Oh, Jeff Brown, Economic and Strategic Opportunities Director. Commissioner, yeah, there was a couple of months ago towards the beginning of the year where we didn't. The only, matter of fact, it was really kind of inconsequential because we were actually going through the economic element of the comprehensive plan, so there were no votes being taken at that time. We do have one vacancy, and we have another member who is had some illness issues himself and some family medical issues as well. I have since spoken to that one individual and just asked him to let me know when he's not going to be there because of one of these issues that may be going on. So we do have a vacancy from somebody
And
that...
how many meetings have that one individual missed?
The number off the top of my head, I'm going to say about 5.
Okay. And I don't agree on all the boards having non-residents, but the Economic Board does make sense to have a couple of business owners. Our business owners do pay a lot of taxes. Actually pay more than our residents. So I don't see where there's a problem having two business members in the city of Daytona Beach on the Economic Board. So that's my opinion, and I know the Economic Board also agrees. I think there was only one that disagreed. Oh, no.
Initially, there was some concern about having some non-members. However, once they worked through that it would be limited to a certain number, then it was a full consensus vote from the board.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I have a point of clarification. Are we, because it says non-electors, which is what I think Mr. Weatherholt was saying, that we didn't want people outside of the city that are not city citizens to be on it. I don't think it was about city business owners. Is that where the issue lies? Where does the issue lie?
Correct.
That they're business owners but don't have to be residents.
Right. If you're a business owner, if you're an owner of a business located in the city, you don't need to be on that. Everybody else needs to be on it.
Okay.
But you do require to have a business in Daytona Beach to be on this economic
Required to have a business.
board.
Correct.
Okay. And I just,
Section, it would be business owner.
I wanted to thank you, Mr. Weatherholt, also for giving your time to serve and also for doing it on the planning board. And I know that your wife serves on a board too, and that you guys get involved, so thank you.
I'd like to thank you as well, but I also have a question regarding that. Some of our boards don't allow you to be on more than one board. Have we vetted that to make sure that he can be on both? Okay, very good.
Letitia, are you the one that keeps up with how many applications we have, or is that Betty?
We received the applications. I don't know off the top of my head how many applications we've gotten.
Is
so.
Betty in the building?
She just left. I'm not sure she would know.
We've had other applicants come in, so it's not just.
We have enough applicants to cover without changing this, is what I'm asking.
If the city commissioners decide they want to accept those applications, you could
We
have.
do.
But you all get to make the decision on.
Well, we've got,
accepting
we got 78,000 people that live here. I don't see why we need to go outside of our city to get two applicants to sit on that board. It makes absolutely no sense to me. It affects our quality of life and possibly could affect the tax dollars that the citizens of this city pay. Therefore, I'm not for this. If we don't have somebody to sit on there that lives in the city, then we need to let it sit empty until we can find somebody. And it's apparent to me that we have been able to round up 3 citizens already to be appointed to this board that do live here. So I'm not in favor of putting outsiders on there.
So are you saying you don't want business owners on there either? Outside business, people that own a business in the city of Daytona
If they don't
Beach?
live here, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know a few businesses. Derek Harris, he's had a business here forever. He's asked me a few times, can he serve on a board? I mean, how long has his business been here?
I don't know, but it's been.
Yeah,
at least
we have
30
NASCAR
years.
that brings in a lot of money to Daytona Beach. We have Higher Brown with the Espelon. I mean, I'm just giving you people that have businesses that bring in a lot of tax revenue, and you're telling me
For a
that-
lot of years, they've called shots that have affected our quality of life here in this town, that have affected our tax dollars. I'm not for it anymore.
Well,
We
could you
got
imagine
82,000,
NASCAR not being-
78,000 people here.
Could
What?
you imagine NASCAR not being in the Daytona Beach?
They're
Or how
not
our
going
economy
anywhere.
would be?
They're not going anywhere if we don't
Okay,
put somebody on here.
I respect your opinion.
They said they were going to leave several years ago, and they didn't leave. They're still here. They're not going anywhere.
I didn't say they were leaving. I'm just saying they bring in a lot of tax revenue for Daytona Beach and our residents.
I understand both of your points of view, and I respect both of your points of view, but I do think that business owners should have a voice, and
Me
we're only
too.
talking about 2 seats. They pay taxes just like we do. They hire people in this city and allow people to be able to eat. I would be for this tonight, no more than 2.
I'm going to contribute to that and say that many businesses are serving residents who do live here, and so it does impact our local residents. So I'm for that.
Okay, I
Call
don't,
for the vote. Do we have speakers? I'm sorry.
No, I don't, I don't have any speakers for this item, other speakers for this item. So, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to go ahead and call a vote?
Uh-oh.
Mayor Henry?
He's still on. He's still there.
We can't hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and do
Yeah.
a roll
Well,
call.
just wait just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. Hey, how y'all doing?
Go ahead and call. You can mute him. You can remove him. You can take him off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know, we're at the voting, had a little.
So I did have
issue here. We have a motion.
A
you have
motion and a second, yeah.
And we've had a robust discussion.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I sympathize with both perspectives greatly. It's always my preference that people who live in the city make the majority of the decisions about things that happen in the city. But I also greatly respect and appreciate anyone who owns a business. Today I had a student that I posted about who lives in Ormond Beach, but he owns a Chick-fil-A on Volusia that's being rebuilt, and he was my former student. And he's been investing in our community and caring about our community for a long time. And, you know, when you have a business here, you probably care about the community as much as someone who lives here. But, you know, I do give personally a little bit of deference to people who live here, because that's a little extra sacrifice and a little more of a preference. I prefer you to own and live in the city.
Right.
Is really what I prefer. But I do believe that some people who don't live in the city have a great deal to offer to the community. So I'm going to support the motion. We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any other questions or comments? It's only two people, right?
Right, no more than?
No more than two?
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries 6-1.
I do have one question. What's the number on this board? The member?
There's 7 voting members, and I believe 3 ex officio members who represent specific organizations like the Chamber of Commerce of Volusia County and Team Volusia.
And ex officio are not voting?
Right.
So 7 voting?
They're not
Okay.
voting.
So 2, so 5.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9B. It is the Growth Management and Planning Department Electronic Message Center Signs, Land Development Code Text Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the City Land Development Code, amending LDC Article 6, Section 6.10.j, to modify current development standards for electronic message center signs, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So move.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we
I
any
have no speakers for this item, Mr. Mayor.
No comments or questions from the commission? Okay, all those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 9C. It's a Growth Management and Planning Department redistricting ordinance. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the Subpart A, Article 2, Section 2 of the City Charter, amending the boundaries of the existing City Commission members' district within the City of Daytona Beach, Volusia County, Florida, establishing new boundaries in accordance with Florida Constitution, Florida statutes, Article 2, Section 2 of the City Charter, and other legal requirements, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Cantu and a second from Commissioner May. We have a number of speakers.
And I do have speakers, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is John Navarro, and on deck is John Nicholson.
John Navarra, 168 Springwood Drive, Daytona Beach, Florida. I would like you to consider the Daytona United map. We had a map maker from Tallahassee create a map. The state legislature allowed for residents to create a map and submit it to the legislature for consideration. So this isn't unusual that a public group would be able to create a map and put it in for consideration. Our map didn't take any people into consideration. It took communities into consideration. Beachside would have 2 districts. One district would be almost all beachside. And a lot of communities of interest, like African Americans and other communities like the West Side, would have equal representation. So I would hope to consider that the City Commission would consider the Daytona United plan. The power to make that decision is up to you, but I would have you consider the map and just look at it with open eyes and open consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Nick Saknowski.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I passed out some thoughts that I had so that you could see them as I spoke with them. First one man, one vote. That's almost totally acceptable at this point. Your map does not give one man, one vote. You put 20,000 people in Zone 4, and if you look, you all should have seen this outside. What's coming up in the next year? One, in the past, this redistricting stopped in July of last year. So there's been 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people that have moved into Daytona Beach in the last year. So you should have about 81,000 people divided, and you don't have that. Within a year of your passing this, if you look at this, there are 2 apartment buildings. There are 2 others being finished as well. They will all have people all in the West Side. You are going to be so out of proportion. If you think the 10,000 that Stacy had over the last 10 years is going to be anything, she will probably be off by 30 or 40,000 when we do the redistricting next year. Now, the mayor looks funny at me, but I go to the planning board meetings. You had a meeting with Dennis. You know what's being planned west of 95. Don't tell me you don't know that it's being built out. Don't tell me you don't know what's going on in Tomoka Farms Road. You know, the LPGA is now built out or planned all the way to ISB. A project is going in that corner. All of that will have population. When you have equal zones, it means the populations are the same, Mayor. So when you put 20 or 25,000 in one zone and 11,000 in another zone, that's not considered equal. And that's what you guys are voting for, unequal zones. The idea that every 10 years they use the census is because it's the latest possible figures. That was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, 70,000 people. How many of you really believe we have only 70,000 people here? Seriously. Okay? He came back with the idea, oh, well, maybe there's 78,000 because that's what the state says. And I'm telling you, within the last year, we did not grow. He said he stopped at July of 2022. That's 11 months, 1 week ago. People have come here since then. All the figures are off. This cannot stand. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Nick Saknowski, and on deck is Emily Humphrey.
I just brought up a map. Which shows, and did everyone get a copy of the packet?
I'm passing them out.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to have spoken with most
And please
of you.
state your name and address for the record.
I'm Nick Saknowski, 1130 Fence Up Court, Daytona Beach, Florida.
So I want to thank you for conversing on the phone or at least receiving emails and meeting in person when possible. What's being called the Daytona United Plan or various sponsors and supporters basically zeroes in on a couple of issues that haven't been properly addressed by Plan D. And the reason it's taken so long is because it took a long time to even get to Plan D. So we had to analyze that, and then, as John mentioned earlier, hire someone who actually was a professional. We didn't want to just do a back-of-the-envelope type of a thing to show an alternative. And if you look at the way, and it's even zeroed in on the Plan D, the way Bethune-Cookman University is divided up, they're really, even though there's some argument that there could be influence on more than one zone this way, the fact is that by even the latest Supreme Court decisions in other states and any jurisdiction, when you divide up a community of interest, legally it's considered dilution. And there's no question that by diluting the university, it impacts the involvement of the students in the future. So our proposal would put that into Zone 6, and that would keep that community of interest intact. Similarly, on Beachside, and I know it's been discussed earlier at previous meetings among yourselves, how to deal with Beachside, there's really no reason to divide Beachside into 3 zones. Again, it dilutes their vote. It doesn't actually accentuate their vote because they become essentially the tail wag on the back of the dog instead of the dog itself, because you have to have where your bulk of your population in Zone 3, for example, is definitely not Beachside. So I guess the major request tonight would be to give it a little more time, maybe just even 2 weeks, to defer the item or to vote down the item tonight in order to defer it, to give more time to consider these alternatives. I think that there's been some good points already raised regarding the numbers. I think that the least that can be done is a better explanation, because I think that there has been some adjustment. Now, whether it's up to date or not is another issue. But the bottom line is that because the next election isn't until a year from November, there's certainly sufficient time to do this in at least a more thorough and analytical manner, giving it maybe back to the consultant for their comments even on this alternative proposal, and just to let it reach the, let's say, common feeling more than it is right now.
Thank you. And I'm going to remind speakers to sign up on an individual sheet for each item that you want to speak on. Thank you.
Thank you.
You forgot your map, sir.
It's actually for the city.
Okay.
It's part of the.
Our next speaker is Emily Humphrey, and on deck is Linda Smiley.
Hey, thanks so much for meeting with me today. So I'm Emily Humphrey. I live at 2714 Silver Palm Drive, Edgewater, Florida. I'm the president of the Northeast Democratic Club here. The map is concerning because it does cut communities of interest in half, essentially. You got Beachside being carved into 3, and you have Bethune-Cookman being carved into 2. The Daytona United Plan, I'd urge you to consider. It doesn't carve communities. It mostly uses main roads. So it's a very natural map. Representation dilution is a serious issue of voter rights. It's been in front of the Supreme Court twice this year, both in Alabama and Louisiana, I believe. Both times they ruled in favor of the Voting Rights Act. So representation dilution cannot stand. That's pretty much it. I do urge you guys to consider Daytona United. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Our next speaker is Linda Smiley, and on deck is Frederick Brown.
Linda Smiley, 357 Manhattan. I just want to say, what's the hurry at this point? Because when I'm looking at it, it's just definitely not divided up properly. And as was mentioned, there's been a lot of residents that have come out to the west side in the last couple of years. I mean, the census was in 2020, and we're just getting to this now in the latter part of 23. So I think a little bit more looking at this will not hurt things and actually might help things. We have enough of the gerrymandering going on from Tallahassee in districts, so we don't need that here. Please reconsider putting this off at this time. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Mr. Frederick Brown.
Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. First of all, I apologize for my latest had a family medical situation we had to take care of first. I seem to recall a favorite mayor of mine making a statement on several occasions of development projects that have come before this commission. And he said that these things were set in motion years ago. They're not of our doing. So I want to remind all of you, this is your opportunity. This is of your doing. So 10 years from now, when things are all catawampus, you are all part of that. So just remember that. This is very important. I agree with everything that John Nickerson said and some of the previous speakers. It's important that our community be laid out in a growth pattern that was laid out years ago, as you're saying. It's important that we make these decisions very carefully. We have almost 80,000 regular people here now. You have a lot of territories, and I'll speak about the other issues that are up before you coming after this, where you're going to have significant flooding issues. You're going to need to be able to address them. The people that live in those areas are going to need to be able to have proper representation so that they may speak to you about these things. So again, this is very important stuff. I know we're very late on this. This should have been done a while back. So yes, there is a sense of urgency for that. But again, I think our city and our residents are far too important to just slough this over with what's been presented so far. As John pointed out, it's not balanced. And as some of the other speakers, you are slicing up some communities. I don't necessarily consider it gerrymandering in ways because, again, the city is dealt differently than other political districts, which that's a whole nother subject. But I'm talking about local here. I'm not talking about any political groups. I'm talking about communities. Citizens that live side by side with each other that deal with these problems. They need to have proper representation. They need to be properly zoned so that we can make positive decisions for our future. Again, all of you have an extreme responsibility in your decisions here tonight. Thank you.
Okay. That was my final speaker on this item, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And
Oh, just for the record, I keep hearing about my zone being overpopulated. For the record, you redistrict every 10 years, and you're supposed to go by the 2020 census, not what we have now, which I don't believe it's 80,000. It's 78? Okay. Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
If the commission is not going to decide on the map that they provided, I just have a request. I overlooked it, and Bethune Point Park was taken out of Zone 1. It's a total of 75 voters, if that's correct. Is it correct? Yeah, Doug? Okay. So I was just wondering if we do decide to go with Plan D, if I could get Bethune Point Park back in.
Point. Oh, that's the little bridge. Okay. Do we have any other comment on this issue?
So Bethune Point Park was put into Zone 3?
That is correct.
Which part of it?
All of it.
I recognize that it's a park, but there's a place called River House that's right next to it. There's also an apartment complex right there. There's Donnelly as well. Those are homes in Zone 3.
River House is not in there
It's
by
not
the map
included.
I've seen, Commissioner. I've got a map that illustrates it if you want to see. Is that all right, Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
the record, I'll submit this to the clerk. So what Commissioner May is looking at is an exhibit prepared with Commissioner Parrish's request in mind, so that that could be seen. I think we may have it with our staff folks as well. So I'll certainly have this passed around to the commission if you don't have copies here, and I apologize to you for that. But anyway, there's an exhibit on the map now, or on the screen that I see here. Do they have it? There it is. Yes, ma'am, it is.
What's the reason that you want it? Because you just stated.
I would like a place for Zone 1 residents at least to have an event there. I've been visiting it a lot. We're working on getting some child playground there too. So I've invested some time in it, and the only other park I have is Shangri-La, which is a basketball court and a pavilion, and the golf course, but you know, someplace that if we need to gather somewhere, we can.
Well, I know residents are tired of us cutting up the city, but I'm perfectly fine with that. I do believe every zone should have a sort of a centering place and have spaces that you could say are central to that zone, and that you could have a place where you would come to. I know when I was in Zone 5, it was always Derbyshire. It was like anytime I wanted to do something or something was done in that area, you knew that was the hub of Zone 5, and it's still that way to this day. So I think it's reasonable and prudent to make that adjustment.
I mean, if I may, for the record, I'm Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager. I failed to identify myself, and I apologize. I will submit the paper the Commissioner May has to the clerk with your permission.
I think Commissioner May wants to make a.
Up until this point, did Zone 3 have a meeting place? We had Peninsula Club, but it's closed. We had City Island Rec, but it's closed. And so were there any other spaces that I'm unaware of in Zone 3 for the past 5 or 6 years?
No, that I know of.
Me either.
We also now have Dickerson.
Starting once we ratify this. All right, thank you. But I appreciate the value of having a space in your zone, so I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure for. I just want to make sure for the record, Mr. Morris, that this does fit within the requirement of redistricting, and we're not doing anything outside of.
Yes, sir, it does. The city attorney and I had a discussion earlier today. It's not considered a substantial change. Fits within the parameters of what should be discussed here this evening.
All right, thank you.
The discussion we had, Mr. Morris, was whether this change would require the ordinance to go back to first reading.
That was correct.
Yeah, this would change the map that was attached to the ordinance, though. And I understand there is some information that's been presented as to the number of residents that would be switched from.
We understand that the residents affected would be roughly 75 people. It's a census tract. The majority of the census tract is the waste treatment plant, the sailing facility, athletic fields, and there is some residential associated with the western side of the proposed change.
So I did talk with our consultant just prior to the meeting. There are some rules and principles that apply in redistricting. One of them is if there are deviations of more than 10% between zones, you've got some problems. And my suggestion would be that if the consensus of the commission is to switch that, then let's do an actual count and see where the numbers end up and let that be presented on second reading. The discussion Mr. Morris and I had, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear with you this morning, Mr. Morris, is this would need to go back to first reading. It's a minor enough change that we don't need to start the adoption process all over again. But because of the potential issue in terms of the maximum deviations.
If you said 10%, it'd be 120 people, because it's 12,189. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm not a math person. I'm just telling you what the legal person is.
It should be in our agenda, right?
Do you need Mr. Hill? Mr. Hill.
All right, let's give me a moment and let me take a look at it in the agenda, please.
Can I touch the third rail right quick? In 1960, we had about 37,000 residents. 1967, we went to 6 commissioners. We had about 45,000 residents. At some point, we will have to go to more commissioners probably. At what point, what is that point, and who would know that? Would that be you,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Gross?
Commissioner, could you repeat that question? I was following up on a question with Jim. My apologies.
Okay. I'll start at the beginning. 1960, we had about 37,000 people in the city. In 1967, it was 45,000. We moved up to 6 commissioners. At what point would we reach to where we expand the number of commissioners up here with population and with census?
There's no rule on that. That's a political decision for you all to make. The one obvious point is you want to have an odd number on your city commission to avoid ties.
Oh, sure.
So you could have a population double this size and have 5 commissioners. You could have a population half again this size and decide you want 9. There is no necessary correlation in that. That's a political decision for the commissioners and the voters to decide.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we need any more people up here.
And it basically is a charter question that goes to the voters to change it if you change it.
The county has 600,000 and, 5 councilmen. It's just a matter of what you service. Yes, sir.
Al Hill, representing WGI, working on your redistricting initiative. This one census block that Commissioner Paris would like to take into her district represents 75 people total, according to the 2020 census. There hasn't been any construction. It's evident in aerial photography since then. So the number is still 75 people, roughly. It really doesn't affect the total numbers. Zone 1, the total population would be 12,264 people. Zone 3, the population, according to the 2020 census, would be 12,087 people with this change.
Immaterial.
So that's less than a 10% difference. You don't have the presumption that you're concerned with under federal law. And under those circumstances with this testimony, then I think it's fine to go ahead and vote on the ordinance subject to the proposed change.
Okay. And no one is interested in this proposed map. Y'all are done with that. Okay. There's nothing I can do about that. I wish that you had, no one said to me that splitting Bethune-Cookman was an issue. I mentioned it 6 months ago. Well, 2 people. Okay. 2 people said it to me.
In all fairness, Mayor, it came up last meeting.
No, I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
2 people during this time, and then in between, I got more people come in and say that it was an issue. But 2 people before, and I'm not discrediting those 2 people. Never do, but I'm just saying it wasn't what the number is now. But at any rate.
And Mayor, look, if you're splitting that community of interest, the harm comes from diluting the vote of the people in that community. Does it dilute the vote of sorry. If you're splitting or arguably splitting a community of interest, the harm is if by virtue of that you are diluting the vote of a minority population. I don't know that there's been any testimony that that would actually occur. That's one. But 2, there have been lots of cases on communities of interest, and community of interest is a little bit like obscenity. The court is very vague on just what is and isn't a community of interest. It's a group of people with a common interest. There may be multiple and overlapping communities of interest in the same area. So I don't know that you've got a situation that you would need to be concerned about. You are supposed to observe communities of interest to the extent practical, but you're able to take in other considerations as well, including political, so long as you're not violating the rights of the people protected by the Voting Rights Act.
All right. But I don't think we have an appetite to go down that road. So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any other calls for consideration or?
I'm sorry, just as a point of order, is the motion to approve the ordinance with the change requested by Commissioner Paris?
So Commissioner Cantu made the motion and Commissioner May made the second. If they can amend their motions to
I
include.
will withdraw my motion, amend it to
Okay.
Bethune.
Okay, so as amended?
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted. Wait, I'm missing something.
I wanted to also say that we consider this going into effect. I think when I spoke with the clerk, you said about the September 5th? September 1? Okay.
Yeah, that's when you would like it to be in effect, so it can get to the clerk and
Yeah.
then people can start signing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
So,
With that date, September
Would
1.
you,
Amend my motion to accept the date September 1st, was it?
Yes.
Of this year, 2023.
okay, and Commissioner May, you were the second, okay?
okay.
As
All right.
amended, as amended.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9D. It's Growth Management and Planning Department. Sorry, redoing it again. Sorry. Growth Management and Planning Department, Fair Lawn Voluntary Annexation. This is an ordinance on second reading public hearing. An ordinance annexing into the city of Daytona Beach approximately 9+ acres of land located generally northeast of the intersection of Clyde Morse Boulevard and Strickland Range Road, consisting of 37 individual platted lots of the Fair Lane at Daytona subdivision, redefining the territorial boundaries of the city of Daytona Beach to include the property, redesignating the boundaries of Zone 5 of the city of Daytona Beach to include the property, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So move.
Have a motion from Commissioner Cantu and a second from Commissioner May.
And I do have a speaker, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Frederick Brown.
Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. In general, I am not opposed to the annexation portion of this. My concern is that when you annex property, you do the right thing with that property. Now, if you don't understand anything about the geology of the Daytona region, if you've studied any of the geological maps, if you've studied any of the current changes to the forestry within those maps and looking at any of the recent stuff, or you could just rely on staff reports, I guess, you would know that this is the last sponge in Daytona. And by sponge, I mean the last piece of property that's going to be able to absorb stormwaters. So it's not so much that we're taking over, it's if we're going to abuse the property, then I'm opposed to it. My concern is that, and I've stated this many times, there's no place for the water to go. This property is completely landlocked by residences. And if you learn anything from other municipalities, especially some of our neighbors over in the Orlando area, when you put a development next to another development, next to another development, and you got no place for the water to go, then the lawyers start getting really rich because now each development starts suing each other for the problems. I think you're already beginning to realize some of the issues that's going on in LPGA, and that should be a lesson learned. If you understand, again, the geology of the area, you realize that 95 is a dam, and all the roads on the north are a dam. In other words, the water is being trapped in this area. Unless you put in a responsible development to where you put in a major storm drainage line and major pumping stations to support that straight to the Halifax, I cannot see where any of this and all the future plans that the city currently has for this land is going to be good for the citizens of Daytona. The only satisfaction I may get in all this is if you do continue to go down this path, which it seems very likely because the appropriate law firms are involved here, is that some of that floodwater will spill over into Ormond Beach where they all like to live, so that they too will get to feel the pain of the citizens of Newtown, Midtown, and places in Daytona, and especially now out west, that are going to enjoy having 3 feet of water in their living room. Thank you.
not have any other speakers, but I do have Mr. Rob Merrill here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
Do y'all have any questions? All right. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move on to item 9E. It's a Growth Management and Planning Department Fair Lawn Large-Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading public hearing. An ordinance adopting large-scale comprehensive plan amendments in accordance with Chapter 163, Part 2 Florida statutes with regard to 198+ acres of property generally located northeast of the intersection of Clyde Morris Boulevard and Strickland Range Road, amending the future land use map designation for a portion of this property consisting of approximately 9 acres from county urban low intensity to level 1 residential, amending neighborhood K development policy to impose limitations on development, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So move.
We have a motion. We'll take a second from Commissioner Henry. Do we have any questions or comments? Speakers?
I do have speakers. Our first speaker is Dana Rhymes Jones, and on deck is Frederick Brown.
Good evening, Dana Rhymes Jones, 109 Tuscany Bend Street. I'm not here just as a single homeowner. I'm also here representing the Tuscany Woods Homeowners Association. When looking at the aerial maps, it's obvious there is land back there to be developed. However, we are concerned about the impacts it will have on our community. With the access road coming into Strickland Range, we are opposed to that. I know it's probably too late to do anything, but we are opposed. Tuscany Towns only has one entranceway, so I don't see why this development couldn't have one entranceway either. We do understand they are remaining townhomes at the 35-foot level. We do know the commercial property is going to be the 60 feet. We are asking, though, if they're doing the 60 feet, if they'll do it similar to one of the other buildings, I believe it's on the Ormond side, down Clyde Morris, though, with the mature vegetation in front of the property to kind of, not just have a big, bold building. We would like to keep that section of Clyde Morris on the softer side, the more natural side. We also have quite the diverse wildlife population. We do have bears and bobcats, along with turkeys and other things. So we are hoping that the natural buffer in between the properties will remain such that it will give a safe pathway for those animals to help reduce the, interaction with human and wildlife. Those are just some things we would like to have taken into consideration. Also, many homeowners that back into these preserves, when they bought from a builder, the builder said they were on a conservation area. Nobody was ever building. So many of them are afraid that they are not going to be keep their woods view. They're afraid they're going to be seeing buildings. Also, when you don't keep a thick enough natural buffer, it's not just for the wildlife. It also helps with noise. It's more aesthetically pleasing, and it also helps with trespassers. Because trespassers are quicker to go over a fence or a wall. They're less likely to go traipsing through the woods where they may run into a bear or a bobcat. So again, we want to be good neighbors, and we're hoping this new development will be a good neighbor to us as well. We're just hoping that our quality of life doesn't decrease because now the population is increasing. So we just hope that these things are taken into consideration as site plans are being developed, and we do hope to be a part of that conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Our next speaker is...
Rob, I'd like for you to set up a meeting with them out in that community.
We've had meetings, and I'm happy to address these comments and any others as the time is appropriate. Do you want it now, or because I think others are going to speak? Yeah, let's wait.
Okay, so our next speaker is Frederick Brown.
Again, it's Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. This is the part of the annexation that I really have a problem with. It's what you do with it. And as has been stated in this room several times before, all the other problems we have are not of your making. This is going to be of your making. This will be forever tattooed to your reputation, what happens here. And again, I've tried to warn you. I understand what the geology of what's going on here. I understand how law firms work. They work for the clients. I understand what the clients want. They want maximum return on investment. I get all that. I'm not opposed to development. I've said it many times. It's responsible development. We've already got enough problems on our hands as it is with stormwater, and now we're just going to add to it. And for the lady who just previously spoke, well, guess what? You're going to get the same thing that all the rest of the neighborhoods got. It's unfortunate there isn't any rules here, you know, and you talk about wanting to have control of your community. I have not seen anybody in this commission in all the years that I've been here actually stop them from stripping land. For those of you who know the area, all the apartment buildings that were slapped together up there, first thing they did was strip and burn and strip and burn. Hundreds of years of growth gone. You're going to see the same thing here because that's what they do. They hire professional architects to lay out the landscape the way they see it, whether or not it's suitable. The lawyers, of course, push this through. That's their job. They get paid big money to do that. And when we're all done and the builder has collected his paycheck and everybody's bought their homes thinking it's all wonderful, and when the storms come, then you're going to have a lot of angry people here. Not just the communities that are currently there who think that they thought they were going to have a natural preserve area. That isn't going to happen. It's going to be stripped. It's going to be burned. All of the natural vegetation will be gone. And if you understand anything about how the sponge systems of Central Florida work, you're killing all of that. They dig it all up, all the peat underneath, thousands of years of natural growth that was designed to absorb impending storms. And then you're going to have to deal with that. Maybe you'll be voted out of office, the next people will go in, or maybe they'll say the same things. It wasn't our doing. But you need to be proactive, and you need to be proactive now. The lawyers all put a nice fancy spin on it. I've listened to them numerous times put sizzle on steak that's badly burned. And you people have to rely on what they tell you. You don't go out there and walk the properties. You don't go out there and do your own geological surveys, etc. But you're going to be faced with the problem. Again, I'm not opposed to development. I just want responsible development. Thank you.
Okay, that was my final speaker.
Do you have me on the speaker for this?
You're for 9F. This is the next one. You signed up for the PD for Fairlawn. This is the large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. So you'll be able to speak on the next one.
I want to follow the remarks.
If you want to come on up, you can come on up.
I just think it goes together.
Come on up
come
to
on.
the podium
Come on up. Come on up.
Thank you.
and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I know that Mayor Henry knows this area really well. He lived there. He lived 2 doors down from me.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you know the area that we're talking about. And, you know, I'm not an engineer. I'm not anyone that really can give you much feedback about the flooding and that type of thing. But I want to say this. I don't think we're being as transparent, and I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Henry, about, you know, meeting again with us. And the reason I think transparency is important in any, you know, government conversation. And, you know, when I received this letter, you know, I'm a teacher. I'm a preschool teacher. And I looked at this and I thought, what is this saying to me? Okay, it's really, you know, it's telling me they're going to build 350 residential units on this property, and then they also want to build a few offices. This map tells me nothing. It is so unclear. And I would like to know exactly what my community is going to look like when it's done. And so if before this building takes place, I think we should at least know what to expect rather than something that makes some of us feel very stupid. And because at this point, I'm not really sure, I'm going to be against it because I really don't know what my community is going to look like. And I don't know how it's going to affect my flooding. And based on comments that I'm hearing, my husband who was ill tonight, that was the first thing he said.
Just one meeting here in the front? Appreciate it.
The first thing that, you know, my husband said, and he's ill, so he couldn't come tonight, but was, is this going to change, you know, our area, and are we going to become a flood zone? And what exactly is this, you know, potentially going to do? And so I would ask you, you know, as people that, you know, live in a neighborhood, that we should be really transparent versus very unclear to the average citizen. And lastly, I would also just say more isn't always better. It's just more. And I have to wonder, again, just as that, you know, good citizen, work, pay my taxes, keep up my home, support our HOA, I have to wonder, why is it that we feel like we have to put all of this building and development into our, you know, our beautiful city, and we're not thinking about areas of the city that just need to be refurbished?
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is
Okay.
expired.
And also the traffic. There's no infrastructure for this development, and that should concern everybody here. Thank you.
I have a question for you, because Mr. Merrill is going to come up and say that they held community meetings. Have you gone to any of those meetings?
Well, there was one that I got a letter on, and I was out of town, but we had representation there.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
But again, we're still not clear on how this
Understand.
is going to look.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob Merrill for the record with Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood. I'll start by saying I'm not going to have any personal or attacks on businesses of people here I know. And I think that's kind of a low blow. So I'm going to steer away from some of the commentary that I don't need to respond to, I don't think. I'll tell you that this agenda item you have now, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just, we've got some pieces of land that were in the county that we're bringing into the city. This actual vote right now is to put land use designation on those properties. It's actually resulting in, I think, a lesser entitlement. So that's a very minor piece of it. I think that most of the folks that have been talking are talking about the third item, which isn't really in front of you until the next item. But I'll say this, you know, Mr. Brown, you know, I don't think he purported to be a geologist, but he talked about geology, he talked about flooding. We're all thinking about flooding these days, right? We've all had flooding, have had personal experiences with it. So in this case, we've been a couple of years in the making on this piece of land to bring forward a project to you that has been blessed by your city engineer, by our engineers, and it's been designed such that it's not going to have flooding because of what we do now in this day and age. Not only do we do retention and detention facilities, which Randy Hudak can come up and talk about if you want to get into the details, but this project has flood protection as well. So we're doing compensating storage. This has been relatively recent, I think, in my experience in Daytona Beach. The idea that if there's going to be any fill in a place that could flood, you find another place for that water to go. That's what's happening here. So this is about 200 acres of land. I think between 65 and 70% of this land is going to remain natural. So for starters, you're not seeing that in most projects. This is a big piece of land that's going to have the majority of the part that's near the folks that have spoken today, I think. Tuscany is going to be wooded with some compensating storage. So basically, a place that's got a place for the water to go. So they're not going to see anything within 1,000 feet in terms of buildings from their houses. We've talked about this with the folks that showed up at the meeting. I guess some weren't able to be there, so I apologize about that. But in the case of this particular piece, I'm not saying across the board, because there are places we need to do some improvements to keep the flooding from happening. A lot of it is places that didn't do what we're now being required to do over and above. So if you want to get into the details of the engineering, we're happy to do that. You know, I'll say that the additional, to go into the next item for a minute, so maybe we don't have to go through it all again in this third time, we are essentially building, I think, somewhere with less than half of what could be built there now. We've actually limited, both from a compensating, from a comp plan policy and from a zoning standpoint, what could be done there now. We're here because we have county zoning on this land. And this happened in a lot of situations in Daytona where land was annexed into the city and it never got a comprehensive plan designation and zoning on it. It stayed county. So we have to be here because of that. But while doing that, it seems like we got a big deal here that we're doing something new and something big. We've actually reduced all of the entitlements significantly and clustered it such that, like I said, between 65 and 70% of this land is not going to be touched at all. So we've done the responsible thing. We've gone through all of the engineering, all of the transportation impact. I believe it was Mrs. Jones who talked about the second connection. We were required by your fire department and your engineering folks to produce a second access to this property. We intended originally to come off of Clyde Morris only. And so if you guys decide you don't want that, we're happy not to have to spend that money to build another road into this property. But that was a big part of the conversation in the last 2 years that we ultimately came to terms with. So I think it's safer. I think it's a lot more expensive for the people that are building the housing out here, but they're going to do it. So I'll let you decide on that one. One more thing I'll say is the area that is the place that's close to the residents that spoke, I think, is also going to be changed in its comprehensive plan designation, now allowing residences to no longer allow any residences, to only allow the flood protection and the compensating storage. So it's going to be a natural area with some place in the middle where the water can go. That's the extent of it. So I apologize for having to do this here, because we did that with the group that did come to the meeting, and I think everybody was pretty much satisfied on that basis. So I think that checks off all the boxes of the. Oh, one more thing. I think it was Mrs. Jones that talked about the commercial piece in the front, which will have some office and some commercial uses which are appropriate there. Certainly everybody would agree with that, I think. And we have a 50-foot landscape buffer requirement along Clyde Morris. So in response to her point about making sure there's some landscaping out there, there will be significant landscaping on the frontage. So questions for me while I'm here? Okay, thanks.
I'm not going to ask a question, but I am going to make a statement, and that is that I'm going to support this portion of it tonight, but I really want to come and meet with you and the members in that community so that they can feel good about what's coming to that community. We've done it before. You and I have done it before. We've over in that area, and we just want to make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel good about what's coming.
And I agree with that, and I understand completely where you're coming from. At this place we're at now, we're essentially telling you to please approve something that has county designation for a city one that is much less. When we come back in with a design and a plan,
right,
happy to set something up.
Thank you.
Yep.
Why do you all want to be in the city and not in the county?
That's a trick question.
Yeah.
It's loaded and tricky.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys, you can't have conversations out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I just have one comment also. All the plans are online on our website, correct?
This not,
So-
they're not at the planning
Not
stage yet.
these yet. They're not there.
We don't have those. Can we see a bigger copy of it?
This
But
is
if she
just a
wants to see like a
comprehensive.
bigger version, can she see a bigger version?
Once they submit it, yeah, they'll.
We're not there yet.
We're not in the
Okay.
plans
An
yet,
entitlement.
Monica.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Sort of thing. Okay.
But I'd like to say something as well. We have to be mindful at all times of the people that live here. And as the ladies indicated, they were told when they bought this property that nothing would be built by them. And I think I understood you, Rob, to say that when this building transpires, that if there's gonna be a commitment that nothing else can be built. We need that in writing. I think they need that there. They're the
Let me
realtors.
just, I'm jumping to the next agenda item for a second to try to answer your question about that. This is a PD. We do these, you know them, you know how it's done. There's a written agreement that the mayor signs and the owner of the property signs, and then there's a plan that generally shows the layout. Ultimately, we have to come back in and we have to go through a complete site plan review process, show you guys architecture, show you all sorts of stuff. That'll happen when the plan comes in. At this point, what you're saying is, this is the quantity of stuff you can do and where you need to do it. And it's binding. I mean, it becomes a covenant that runs with the land. So this is a custom zoning. Instead of having to look at the zoning book and the zoning map, you look at this document, it tells you what you can and can't do there.
And I
It's binding.
understand that. I'm just saying, let's be mindful of them.
100%.
And particularly as we go forward, because right now we're just annexing the property. We're just saying what it's going to be.
Right.
And when we get to that point, I want to also indicate that the letters that we're sending, they don't seem to be comprehensive enough or in layman's terms for them to understand. So we may want to look at that as well.
Yeah, it's a city form that she, I think, had in her hands. We typically, when we do a neighborhood meeting notice, we try to explain what's happening. And we usually will give like a map and a plan that says, this is what it's about, so people don't show up and think we're doing something terrible. So we try to do that as best we can, but I think this was a notice about this meeting, not about the neighborhood meeting.
All right.
But again, Commissioner Henry, happy to set something up, so when we have a plan to show people, we will do that.
And keeping in mind, I want to keep in mind that this area was county area prior to, so,
Still is till we vote.
yes.
So only a very small part of it. I think it's 9 acres of the 200 acres that we're talking about right now. The rest of it is going to be part of designating their whole piece of land as city zoning, where it never got city zoning. It got most of it got annexed in long ago, never had any zoning. So that's all we're doing here with the third thing.
And I wouldn't believe that 200 acres would sit empty and they would not ever build on it. I don't care who told me that. And you can tell Jesus and 3 responsible others, but if you come and tell me there's 200 acres behind me and we're never going to do anything with it, I'm going to say, now you're not quite being forthright and being honest with me. But that's just me. In going forward, I would just like to make sure that we meet with these people, because I think that we're dealing with 2 different builders, right? So your builder probably told you one thing on your land, oh, nobody's ever going to build over here, and then they don't have any authority on the other land that they're speaking on to say that nobody's going to build on that. On whose authority are you speaking when it's not even your land to speak on, whether or not it's going to be developed? And so I would like to meet with you all. I would like for you to feel comfortable and good moving forward with what's going to come, how it's going to look, how the vegetation is going to look, what kind of barriers we can put up. And I think that Rob is a good person, and he will work hard to make sure that that happens.
He's all right.
All right. We have a motion and a second. And, boy, I guess I'll say this. No, I lived, as she said, and behind the home that we had was an area that we were of the impression that nothing would be behind us. And to my knowledge, that continues to be the case. But I don't know how great the distance was or what we were told. But I'll just say this, I don't think anytime we get new development most of us don't want it too close to where we live. Although we probably expect it in this day and age. But I would say that it's just incumbent upon us as a commission to realize that if 65 or 70% is going to stay as it is, that's a reasonable objective. And that's what we should be aspiring to, more of that than a lot of what we've seen, as Mr. Brown accurately says, when they build the apartments and they just clear cut everything, and what they did in that portion along LPGA across from Publix, that didn't look good. And that's the kind that we need to try to avoid. So all right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item 9F. This is the Growth Management Planning Department Fair Lawn Plan Development General. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 198 plus or minus acres of property generally located northeast of the Clyde Morris Boulevard and Strickland Range Road intersection from VC Volusia County R2 Urban Single Family Residential to PDG Plan Development General, approving the Fair Lawn Plan District Agreement to allow for a maximum of 350 multifamily residential or townhome units and approximately 4 acres of medical or office-related uses, subject to certain conditions, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Take a motion from Commissioner May, and I'll take a second from Commissioner Cantu.
Okay. And I do have Ms. Lenhoff. Did you want to speak on this item as well?
I think I'm good. I mean, I have questions, and if this gentleman will answer them.
Okay, then you can okay, then.
And since Commissioner Henry is willing to go through the next level with us.
Okay, then we're going to move on to the next speaker. Is it Dana Rhymes Jones? Did you want to speak again? Okay.
Dana Rhymes Jones, Tuscany Woods Homeowners Association. And no, none of us knew there's 200 acres. When you're buying a home, you see woods and a builder says, no one's building behind you. That's where people. Now, when you look at the aerials and you see the land, yes, there is land to be developed back there. Yes, that property owner has rights too. We're just wanting to make sure that 60 to 75% of the property that is remaining natural is what's closest to us. That's all, And we did have concerns because a lot of those lands are low lying and do take in a lot of the storm water. So that's where we were with that. Now, the neighborhood meeting occurred a year and a half ago, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend due to work. But also the neighborhood meeting, the letters, and I know they met the legal standards. However, just because it's legal doesn't make it right. I think we're a homeowner association. So when it affects one of us, it affects all of us. So I started getting calls one weekend. What is this? What are these letters? Well, I'm not in that 300 feet requirement. So I didn't know what the letter they were talking about. So I started doing a little research. I'm now online and get the notifications, and I've been telling other neighbors how to get the notifications. But that letter, when you're sending those out, I think it should have to go to the entire homeowners association. I really do. I don't know where that can get changed, but again, when it affects one in a homeowners association, it affects all of us. Also, in that area, we're just hoping that we don't end up like LPGA. People are nervous. What happened out there with that clear cutting and those poor homes that are now exposed to construction versus when they used to look at a tree line, that's horrible. Also, our neighbors to us at Grand Preserve, when the Emerson got built, they used to look at a tree line. They're looking at parking garages, and they're gonna have to listen to people coming in and out of their parking garages. Laurel Dune, same thing. Tuscany towns. They used to have beautiful woods that they kept looking at. They cleared out all of that but some sickly little pine trees, and now they're all going to be looking at each other. Again, we understand development is coming. We just want it done better. I mean, the natural buffers are the best way with noise, with aesthetics, and to help keep people from trespassing. Because again, they will climb a fence. Also, with the PUD, our PUD, which was one of Mr. Merrill's clients, called for a masonry wall. They put up the cheapest wooden fence possible, and we ended up having to spend $33,000 on a fence the city would approve. Thank you.
And I want to add to that, because this was the same thing that happened when that development was coming to Dahun Holly. And I had spoke to the previous attorney about making sure the size that our ordinances, as far as the size of the signage, so that people can know about those meetings, was a certain size. Because I remember before they put this little sign up, it was about 9 by 12 and nobody could see it. And they put it back over in the dumpsters by the dumpsters and no one got to see it. So people didn't know about the meeting. So it would help, because the people who only got the 300, within the 300 feet, they're going to get the letter. But it would help because people who are in the subdivision who don't get the letter will be able to see the signage. Hey, there's a meeting about development coming into the community on this particular day. And I would like to make sure that going forward.
Thank you, ma'am.
We did,
Okay.
we did change it.
Okay.
It was after
Okay.
that.
All right,
It was
we
after
do,
that
I do
meeting.
Oh,
appreciate
it was
that, we
after
do need the neighborhood meeting for the site plan.
It was after that meeting happened.
Thank you.
Yeah. That meeting happened over a year ago.
I don't
Okay.
have other speakers. Is there anybody?
Mayor, I have a couple of exhibits. I don't know whether I can get them up there. I apologize. We weren't prepared to give you a full presentation, but I think maybe just holding this up for you and I can show you around.
Is it in the backup?
Yeah, if you can put this up on the screen, that'd be great. Okay, there we go. So if you look at the Tuscany area, it's you see it labeled in the bottom and off to the right-hand side there. The area that's, well, if you can put, yeah, so the red outlined area that is next to them, we just, in your previous vote, changed your comprehensive plan for this property, so it no longer allows housing. Now it only allows nothing or compensating storage pond. That's it. So as you know, I mean, the comprehensive plan becomes the Bible we all have to live with, right? And so that's what's going to happen here, nothing else. So the closest home, I believe we measured it to any of the buildings that we're going to build here is 1,000 feet away. So I'm sorry I couldn't do that. So can you see that? You can't really see it. Yeah, so let me try to walk over here for you. Sorry to get off the mic, I'm just going to point. So I think the first building is somewhere over here. You guys, this is your stuff. This is not going to be
She can't write it down.
built with anything.
Shh. Stop talking before you get to the mic.
I'm coming back to the mic. What I was doing was describing with my hands and trying with my mouth in that direction, should have been over here, to show them what's going to be there. And I understand people are skeptical about things like, okay, Mr. Brown would see the lawyers up here giving you a line. But at the end of the day, thank you, Jim. At the end of the day, I think we have answers for these folks on all of this, and I think what you guys are voting on tonight is a lessening of what's allowed there. You're just doing it for a city designation versus a county as it comes down to it. So again, when we get through the site plan process, happy to make sure everybody knows. I'll put the biggest bright yellow sign up that we always do to make sure everybody knows what we're doing. Nobody's trying to hide anything here. I think this is a great project. I think it's a smart growth project. I think you got some mixed use going on in Clyde Morris, so people don't necessarily have to go all the way over to the shopping centers nearby. And this is going to be a project that, like I said, has, I think it's 60-something% is going to be remain natural. It's unheard of at this day and age. So, and again, the folks that are immediately affected are not going to see anything. They're not going to hear anything. They're not going to be affected. And I can show them that by showing them this when we walk outside after the meeting. I promise you that. And by the way, Mr. Brown, for what it's worth, I think you know I am up here all the time. And if I'm blowing smoke anybody here, including you, I got to be back here next month, right? Enough said.
You feel, man, you mad at Brown. Brown get up and do it on the line.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move on to item 9G. It's a Growth Management Planning Department, Sporty's Car Wash, Plan Development General. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 2.11 plus or minus acres of property located at 1500 West International Speedway Boulevard at the northwest corner of West International Speedway Boulevard and Hagen Terrace from Tourist Office Restaurant to T2 and Plan Development General to Plan Development General, approving the Sporty's Car Wash Daytona Beach Plan District Agreement, authorizing the property to be developed as automated car wash and enclosed vacuum court, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion, Commissioner Reed, second. Was it Commissioner Cantu? Okay. Do we have any speakers?
And I don't have any speakers. I do have Joey Posey here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
All right, no questions? All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Henry is out.
Okay, thank you. Henry out. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9H. It is a Growth Management Planning Department Public Use Permit, Senior Frog Restaurant, bar use. This is a resolution public hearing. A resolution approving a public use permit in association with the city's lease of approximately 31,431 square feet of city property located at the northeast corner of Ocean Avenue and Harvey Avenue, 41 Ocean Avenue, for the development of Senior Frogs Restaurant, authorizing bar and nightclub uses as additional permitted uses for the property, subject to applicable use, subject to applicable use-specific standards, modifying minimum required parking requirements for the property, and providing an effective date.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Reed and
Did you sign up to
May.
speak? We have your speaker sheets? Okay, it looks like you signed up on the wrong form, but come on up and speak and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Matt First, 3315 South Atlantic Avenue, Daytona Beach. I'm here as part owner of the Ocean Deck Restaurant on 127 Ocean Avenue, right near the new project. I just wanted to let you know we support businesses coming into that area. That area does need more business. The concern is we're closing a beach parking lot where Daytona Beach needs beach parking on a non-driving beach. So the city lot there provides many people the opportunity to go to the beach in that area, which definitely supports my business, the band shell, the boardwalk, things like that. 4 years ago on 101 Ocean Avenue, the Ocean Deck tried to get a parking lot put in on that property to support the hotel, which uses some of our parking, that does not have enough parking. We don't have enough parking. And we were denied by the city 4 years ago after being in litigation for about a year with that. So we want to be treated fairly. If a Senior Frogs restaurant comes in, takes away that beach parking, and then has an opportunity to put a parking lot on 101, we're going to have a problem with that probably. By adding another large restaurant to that area is also going to be a major congestion problem, which already is on Harvey and Ocean Avenue. So we're very concerned about that because the sidewalk there is very limited. When we submitted our plan for the 101 lot, we had to redevelop the sidewalk there also. So our concern with Senior Frogs coming in is putting reduced parking for them with an area that already doesn't have enough parking, which will cause more and more problems. And it also takes away beach parking, which, as we know, in the city of Daytona Beach, we lack in a no driving zone. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Takes away beach parking because of the parking lot, not because of the beach.
Correct. Correct, because it's a non-driving section of the beach.
Okay, our next speaker is John Nicholson, and I believe on deck is Jim Cameron.
You give them parking around the corner.
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. In the past, and I don't know if it's been changed or not, in the last 40 years, there has been a CRA area, and there were certain rules for the CRA area, one of which is the highest and best uses hotels. And we had ruled that there were no nightclubs to be built on the ocean because single floors, all right? And if you recall, when South Atlantic wanted to build the two buildings, I forgot what the two of them are, Land Shark and it was a Mexican restaurant or whatever, they had to get special dispensation because they weren't really going to be restaurants. They were going to be temporary restaurants because there would eventually be a hotel there. This property is a 50-year lease. They may or may not choose, if they want to choose, to put a hotel there. But there's no, do you know what I'm talking about? We have,
Boats in it.
yes, we had established, and we went through a really big problem in this area years ago. They wanted to put in three condo hotels and a swimming pool from Fort Lauderdale, and the residents opposed it because they didn't want timeshares. They didn't want condo hotels. So they fought for a hotel, and we screwed ourselves out because the Wyndham and the Ocean Walk are doing fabulously. And we would have had 3 huge hotels in that location. So I'm asking you, are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Did we change the rules and regulations, and are they getting something that we are not giving to other people as well? Thank you.
Okay. And our final speaker on this item is Mr. Jim Cameron.
The gentleman before John is up here from, like I say, Ocean Deck, and he's got a valid concern as relates to parking. Just want to say we're working on some solutions to create more parking in this vicinity. So hopefully that'll be coming shortly then. Just want to let you know.
Thank you.
Who is the we, Jim? Who is the we?
You can't say all that.
Okay, if you can't say.
Can't say yet. But it's working. It's on the way.
Okay, and I did have one final speaker sign up, Miss Jenny Nazak.
People want to do that. Okay.
Jenny Nazak, 501 Harvey. Okay, so this is my front yard. Like, I walk down from my house almost every morning to go to the beach, and I walk in the evening, blah, blah, blah. And so I've been spoiled for some years because I've lived in the neighborhood since 2013. But this is an urban area. Of course, it's not supposed to be blank forever. It's an urban, and it's smack dab in the tourist area. So I always knew there's going to be something there. And actually, we have a good number of hotels. People like to eat, and I definitely like to eat. And I think it's not a terrible thing to have there. You know, like, okay, in my ideal Jenny's universe, there might be something really quirky there, but I'm kind of okay with it. I think it's good. And also, we should start making use of vertical space. Like, there can be a restaurant with floors of hotels on top. Wouldn't that be cool? Or let's have parking lots with stuff on top or on the bottom, like, instead of letting so much land get chewed up. So, and I hope they have really good chips, because I really like tortilla chips. Okay, thank you.
that was my final speaker on this item.
Those were some great ideas that I think that Jenny just shared in regards to how we could help with the parking. I'm going to tell you, I love Senior Frogs. I went there in Puerto Rico, and our youth need somewhere else to go, and everybody doesn't want to go on Seabreeze.
And we
You know,
don't want 'em all
Seabreeze
to
is
go on
exactly, and it's gotten such a reputation now. But I've been at Embry-Riddle for almost 28 years, and our students get on the highway and go somewhere because we don't have enough that actually keeps them here, that keeps them engaged. You know, we want them to take ownership for this city and hopefully even stay here. But there's nothing that attracts them to want to do so. And you've got different mindsets with students. You know, everybody, as we stated, doesn't want to go to Seabreeze, and it's gotten such a reputation. They need to spread them out, give them somewhere to go.
I agree. Spread them out. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other conversation? All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 10, which is our administrative items. Item number 10A is the Growth Management Planning Department Special Events Land Development Code Text Amendment. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending City Land Development Code, Article 5, Section 4.4.c, to modify current development standards for special events and LDC Article 11, Section 11.5, to modify the definition of special events and add additional definitions, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item?
No.
Not at this time.
I have a question. Is this all areas of redevelopment areas, or we have a specific piece of property we're talking about?
Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager. Commissioner Strickland, this is an area that goes into the Land Development Code. It's not a specific or special piece of property. The intention of the amendment is to open the door to allow people to do more of what they've been trying to do at a lesser expense for application fees and so on, have more community-related events, which the Commission in different forms has asked for quite some time. This amendment is intended to address that and make it a more opportunity for a number of people. And you've seen Irvin White and Sharon come in. They're an example of it, but there's others that will follow.
That's an example.
You will see the other people following that idea, and it's been, we've worked with them really almost contrary to the code to try and open the door where people can do more. The Commission has asked repeatedly for that to be able to be done in various places, and that's the instance and intention here.
Let me jump in if I can. So Bike Week and Biketoberfest, those aren't special events the way this code provision is. Sorry, thank you. So Bike Week and Biketoberfest, when you approve the master plan, that's not this code provision. This code provision deals with administratively approved special events, meaning staff can approve them. They're more constrained. You know, they're not like citywide master plan events. And there's a lot of criteria that have to be met. Right now, you can't do these kind of things by code on properties other than industrial, commercial sites, sites that are subject to a public use permit. This allows additional undeveloped properties, if they're of a certain size, to be eligible for these events, but only if they're in scale and they don't have too many traffic impacts. That
Example would be Irvin White's property.
That is an example.
Okay.
That's one. I think the Sun Chasers have done some events. You got other folks that are interested.
So right now, you've been having to approve all of those things when they're in a redevelopment area as a master plan event. This would allow them to go through the more expedient process.
It also helps them time-wise and helps them in planning. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
No, this one's on first reading, so that's okay. The public hearing and final action will be July 19th. Okay, moving on to our last agenda item. It's item 10B, it's City Manager's Office, approval of a 50-year ground lease between the City of Daytona Beach and Senior Frogs. This is a resolution approving a ground lease agreement with Senior Frogs Daytona Beach LLC for establishment and operation of a Senior Frogs restaurant nightclub on approximately 31,431 square feet of city property located at 41 Ocean Avenue for an initial 50-year term with options to renew for 2 5-year terms, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the lease agreement, authorizing payment of $500,000 to Senior Frogs Daytona Beach LLC for the build-out improvements subject to conditions, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. Commissioner Reed, you can make
And I don't have anyone that has signed up for this particular item.
Do we have any questions or comments from the commission? All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-1.
Okay. And that was our last agenda item.
All right,
Let me start with Commissioner
who
Henry.
do we start with? Commissioner Henry?
And two, I think.
No, it's Cantu in the redevelopment.
Cantu is in the redevelopment, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I enjoyed the parade. Good night.
Good night.
You take.
just want to remind you of the concerts in the park. Next week on the 15th, and it is an all-jazz women's band. They flashing me too. I have a little red light up here where staff flashes us when we don't have the mic on, but thank you for telling me as well. Just want to remind you that there's a concert, Midtown Series concert. The next one will be on July 15th, and it is featuring an all-female jazz band, and I hope to see you all there for that particular event. Please pick up a copy of the manager's update. Do we make these? I know they can be electronic, but they're also outside, and there's I learned this word in grad school, a plethora of events that are announced in this so that you can say, see what our city is doing. And I believe those are all, that's all I'm going to say this evening. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you kindly. Commissioner Parrish?
I had a good time at the parade, too. And I just want to thank our representatives, also Senator Wright, Matt Reinhardt. I think Jake Johansson was there, maybe not. Was he there? He was there also. All of them were there but two. The other ones I don't know, so I'll have to introduce myself the next time. But I want to thank Commissioner Cantu also for, I guess, you were the one who started this, from what I've heard. So thank you for that. And also thank you for staff for putting it all together. It's really nice to see the community come together and all the kids are all excited and beautiful flags waving. And I went to the beach, and we really do have the most beautiful beach in the world. So I hope everyone's enjoying it, and I hope everyone's having a good summer. And that's it. Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback on Commissioner Parrish, and maybe you're going to say something I don't know, Commissioner Cantu, but there was a program, and some folks just got a little anxious and just totally took us off program. But, you know, there were certain things that were supposed to be done in a certain order, and we just need to be mindful of that. So I don't know if everybody needs to copy the program so they know the order of the program. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
On their behalf, I was, when I talked to the commander for some reason.
Oh, he was doing it.
On their behalf, when I talked to their commanders, supposedly they didn't receive the program, so we'll have to do better next time.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Strickland.
Just one thing. I want to thank Parks and Rec for a great grand reopening of Collins Park. For whoever arranged all of that, the hot dogs, the ice cream, the drinks, and thank everybody who attended. Great job, and that's it for me.
Good stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Looking forward to the opening of Dickerson Center on August 5th. We'll be there. Hope to see you all there. And thank you for a good meeting.
All right, thank you. Commissioner May, Cantu, sorry.
I just had, well, I want to acknowledge County Council David Santiago, but he just left. Okay. He was out there. And I just want to say thank you. I guess Louis is out right now. And stand up. You did. You did an excellent job at the ceremony parade. On those photos.
Does a good job.
Oh, man.
And that's it. Oh, we have a little. Go ahead.
It's my twin right there.
You were twins.
It was not coordinated. We just all showed up in red.
That's my student right there. Oh, yeah. Great, isn't he?
Got the dog. Yeah.
I'm skipping to the parade. There's a lot of photos.
I know. You did a great job. I looked
That's
at
all
one
right.
of them.
Well done. A question, why do we limit this to Main Street? Why don't we take it down?
Not too far, not too far. Keep it nice and tight.
Oh, wait, because most of our veterans couldn't go any further. We have 90-year-olds on their Korean War.
Nice and tight.
Perfect.
I just asked a
More
question.
money and stuff. And
You answered it nice and tight.
you got staff working already. This stuff costs, you know, and they work a dime and a half. It's my turn.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we understand that parades and things of that nature are not free. You have staff working, time and a half. 4th of July, it's a holiday. Well, we don't get no time and a half. And I'm not knocking or begrudging. I just think it's perfect to me. Because if you want to come to the parade, get up and go to Main Street. We need to do something on Main Street. We want it revitalized. Get up and go to Main Street. And the people who are in the hotels can, go down and see it, and the residents can come down. It's really getting better every single year. And seeing the children out, I slowed it down because I had my driver, he had to stop at least 15 times for me to take pictures of the children because they were decked out looking like Americans, and I just thought it was great. I enjoyed it.
And Parks and Rec, they did an incredible job as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, doing a great job. On so many fronts, we're doing a great job. Affordable housing, I've been told by staff that we should see something on the next agenda. Next agenda is the planned, you want to?
Mayor Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager, we've received a proposal from the consultant, sent back to ask some questions about that. I don't think it'll be the next agenda simply because of the lead time, but we've got questions out to get a response from them. We'll have something for you very soon. 2 agendas? I
Two
think
agendas.
Yes, sir. I read the
Give you
book.
2 agendas, okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I don't want to start doing y'all's job. Okay, good job. But that is it remains of the greatest degree of importance that I can express. It's not getting better, it's getting much worse. While we have a lot of great momentum in a lot of areas and a lot of good things, Commissioner Reed is right. If you haven't seen this, and when people tell me we don't have anything to do, nothing's going on, or you can't serve, for those of you who are servant-driven, there are opportunities for you to get involved in this community and to do and to pay it forward. And there's also opportunities for us to get together and have a good time. So let's continue to be great, Daytona Beach. Mr. Manager?
Just one item. Do thank the staff that helped to work with Commissioner Cantu in reference to the Veterans Parade and also the staff members that participated in the Veterans Parade. As Commissioner May talked about on August 5th, the Dickerson Center grand opening, that will not only just be a grand opening, but it will also be a display of all of the programs that the Parks and Rec Department has to offer the community and what's being planned for our facilities as they continue to be improved, as also the parks that we've been improving. So thanks staff for the work, as Commissioner Strickland said, on Collins Park, and we'll have a couple more parks that are being redeveloped and activities taking place.
Sir?
Nothing, thank you.
I have one other thing. I'd like to thank you all for indulging me in my tardiness. As the little ones grow, their schedules stretch the family in ways that we don't have enough elasticity or bandwidth to keep up with sometimes. And so I ended up chasing the boy to Orlando and getting back as quickly as we could. And the wife was all over the place. And the little girl says to me, she said to someone the other day, she says, oh, my schedule is, she likes a packed schedule. And I'm not one, and I want to make a shameless plug for reading. I don't believe in over inundating children with activities until they show that they are going to be proficient readers. And I didn't do that for any of my children and believe that it should be the greatest priority in a home until they show that. Well, she's been demanding to have a more demanding schedule like her brothers. And so she told me last week, she told someone, my schedule is getting busier than my dad's. And so that's not a good sign for, all my other duties. But at any rate, appreciate you all indulging me, and things are great, yes.
Since my son is listening tonight, my wife made sure I make my son's birthday is today, so I want to say happy birthday to my only child, Jay. Happy birthday.
And I want to remind everyone that on July 10th, we are having a wreath-laying celebration at the Bethune statue, and that is also my second-born Derek's birthday and the great Bobby Yarborough's birthday.
Yes.
July 10th. Okay, so yeah, we'll be there. Okay. Is it 10? It's 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
9 to get away from the sun.
And the alumni is doing it at 6:30 at the statue that evening.
What sense is that,
You
man?
can't make some more than me. Come 6:30 p.m.
Yeah, could have joined us. Okay, we'll hear from the residents of Daytona Beach at this time.
Okay. Our first speaker is John Navarro, and on deck is John Nicholson.
John Navarro, 168 Springwood Drive. During the past 2 summers, when I was campaigning for state representative to represent Daytona Beach in the Florida legislature, 3 different groups had concerns that either there weren't enough activities for young people to do, or maybe some kind of disconnect, because I just heard the mayor's comments, maybe some disconnect on what activities are offered for people in our community. But the first group were the grandparents in Midtown, and many had said that they see the children out and they're, just not entertained, kind of occupied, not enough, structured activities for them to really participate in, they thought. And the other group was the children themselves, and maybe it's that they don't know what's offered. Maybe that's part of the difficulty. But the students themselves, they were under 18. They were very well-mannered, but they were very strong in telling me about wanting to do more, wanting the city to offer more activities for them to do. They thought they were pretty ignored. And the other group was some of the community activists, people I just happened to go to their door, and they seemed to be very involved in their community, and we walked some of the parks and things like that, and talked about seesaws and swings and things for the older kids, and there just seemed to be a coordination. And then I did notice, too, that you had brought up in the past meeting about getting a connection with the younger people where there is a problem with the young people with violence in the city, and they had a march this weekend about it. And maybe it's a question of getting a coordination of what's available for the young people, getting the young people kind of interested. I teach school, so I know how that might be done. And then getting the participation of more people in our society. So I think that is just one area that there may be a lot of room for growth. And when I did tour the city, when I was campaigning, it seemed to be very safe. A lot of the times I was in the summer and it was very hot. I think people just didn't want to be outside. But the city itself, everybody was very nice, very warm city to knock on doors and say, hey, this is what I want to do for the people of the community and any ideas for improvement. So hopefully that'll help a bit. And I think it's just something that maybe we need to kind of work on a bit, is getting a connection maybe of the activities with the students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Nick Saknowski.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I want to talk to you about the appearance on Beachside, the maintenance on Beachside. You just approved a restaurant with no sidewalks. Ocean Avenue has no sidewalks on the east side. The sidewalk on the west side, unless you're 6 inches or less wide, so if your hips are wider than this, you can't walk on that sidewalk. There is no handicap approach at Harvey. So if you're handicapped and you get to Harvey, you have to jump off because there's no handicap accessible on either side of Harvey and Ocean Avenue. We have two 15-foot lanes. We could easily shrink them down to 12, which is the normal lane, and paint, if we don't want to put a sidewalk in, paint a line to make it accessible all along Ocean Avenue from A1A to Main Street. Because you have a very popular restaurant, the Ocean Deck, and those people have to walk in the middle of the street because they park at Breakers Park. So we're creating our own problem. So if we're going to fix it before Senior Frogs gets in. Secondly, graffiti's starting to show up. Our sidewalks, they have the pavers. The pavers are missing. It's a trip hazard. Our tourists walk up and down our sidewalks all the time. The sidewalks have to be repaired. There's like 5 locations that they put the pavers in, but there's only sand, so it gets wiped away. The trash cans overflowing, so we have to find a way of getting them regularly emptied. And there's 4 locations, especially that Burger King one. Once it gets overflowed, the trash goes into the street, down the sidewalks. It looks terrible. We make a lot of money off the tourists. We really do. I know I've been told by commissioners, not this group, but in the past, we no longer have tourists. We are not a tourist town. Trust me, we still have tourists. We are still a tourist town. In 2004, we lost 17 hotels and motels. We have not replaced those rooms yet. People say, oh, we don't need any more motels. As a growing city, we do need hotel rooms. You can't sit there stagnant. All right? We can't live on the number of people that came in 2010. Okay? We have to grow. So I'm asking you to look at Beachside holistically, because people expect a certain degree of ambiance. They will not live with a 1950s trash. They expect the very best, and we have to provide it. Thank you.
John, I don't know if you've already provided this, but will you provide the location where those pavers are missing, as well as where he has already?
I get a memo every week. It'll be on there.
Okay, so we know where to go.
Our next speaker is Nick Saknowski, and on deck is Frederick Brown.
Yeah, Nick Saknowski, 1130 Fence Up Court. Thanks for the opportunity to speak again. I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarification and actually request some clarification on some of the process and the redistricting. In my review of what the city charter says, it's mandatory that after the decennial census that the redistricting occur, just like everywhere else in the country. But it doesn't actually say in the charter, at least I didn't see it, that it requires the numbers be used. And because, as growth indicates, if you were to use the numbers that were 3.5 years old, it wouldn't be up to date. In fact, it gives the commission the latitude to see, to redistrict as it sees fit. So I think that that was, properly done, of course. The question I had is regarding the actual method it was done, because in some of the backup I saw, it was talked about being an amendment to the 2013 ordinance, and yet some of the backup I received was actually a draft ordinance, which does reference the 2020 census. The 2013 ordinance naturally references the 2010 census. So I was a little bit confused in, trying to get the communications out there regarding this, because it wasn't really clear whether we would be going through requesting an amendment to a new ordinance or another amendment to an old ordinance. So I just would wonder why that backup was like that, because even for this item today in the first reading, it actually has a copy of the 2013 ordinance. When I came into the office, I got a draft of obviously a 2023 ordinance. So for the public, that's not clear. And then just for the future, as growth occurs, because a couple people did mention about continued growth of the city, and it goes to Commissioner Strickland's point, the city is, of course, free under the charter to change the number, and the charter change would be required for a number change, but certainly the districts can be reviewed at any time. And it's that I would agree with that point, that it should be at least discussed at some forum, that as the city grows, it may or may not make sense to grow the size of the commission. I would point out that the most, quote, represented legislative body in the world is the General Court in New Hampshire, and it doesn't necessarily produce better results. So numbers don't inherently mean that it's going to be a better representation. But it's certainly worthy of discussion. But with that, I would, if possible, through the chair, get a clarification on that process. Thank you.
Do you want me to address that, Mr. Mayor? So in prior revisions based on redistricting, we had for some reason, every 10 years repeated an amendment to the last ordinance as the style and the heading. Former city attorney Jagger and I looked at it before we had first reading. It's not necessary. We're adopting an ordinance in accordance with the charter, and that's the way the title is styled. The title is styled. So,
thank you.
Should be less confusing in the future.
Yeah, because it was it was impossible online to see a copy of the new ordinance, and generally speaking, when there's new ordinances,
right,
the draft is available. So it was difficult. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is Marjorie Johnston.
Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. 3 minutes goes by pretty fast, so try to cover everything. First of all, on the 4th of July, thank you, Commissioner Cantu, for helping put that together. And I don't think anybody's mentioned, but Commissioner Reed, I just loved your interpretation of the national anthem. That was really nice. But it was you did a great job, and it was great to hear her sing. And then all the commissioners there, I mean, it was great to see you there, the mayor, the now absent manager. It was great to see all of you involved. It is a sense of community when you do things like that, and as a veteran, and as Commissioner Cantu pointed out, my group of Vietnam veterans, our average age is 77, so yeah, those long parades in July can be a little bit, but we made it. So anyway, and I also did an interview with the TV news, the cable news there afterwards. But I did have to wash before my second event because I was pretty drenched. Does bring out the emphasis that I brought up before, need for more shade. I felt that your son was great out there. How he survived the heat, beyond me, but it's obvious that we need to put a little bit more into our parks areas and public areas with some shaded areas that we can have in there. I can't emphasize how important that is with skin cancer on the rise. And as you know, it's hot. And our police chief, what a great, you got some serious competition, Mr. Mayor. He's a great speaker. I enjoyed listening to him. Anyway, just to quickly, the counselor from the firm representing the development, I don't do personal attacks. I do mission attacks. And I told him such. I have never once mentioned his name or his firm's name. I'm very careful about that. I did note that my name was used numerous times in a personal attack on me, and I am counting on the city clerk and the mayor to be the referee in that. So, again, I do mission attacks. I don't do personal attacks. As far as Parks and Recreation balanced expenditures, you approved tonight $180,000 roughly for a portable stage. Probably a good idea. I'd just like to see you throw a little bit of money towards Bridgeport Heights to replace the fence that was removed and the green belt that was removed by the resident on the north side that sold for profit. So again, with that in mind, and I also talked about shade is badly needed. Utilities Department, I was really saddened to see that item 8J had to show up on our consent agenda. I don't know if you really understand this. I spent a good part of my career involved in this. When you lose a major pump like that, it's 6 to 8 weeks delivery if you actually read the details, plus the shipping, and then there's the installation. The fact that that whole system relies, the power system relies on the water from that pump shows how much of a thin layer of ice that we're operating on. That needs to be corrected. And I know most of you aren't engineers or technical people. I understood everything that was in there, and it really, really concerned me. And as I pointed out before, we don't have backup power on most of our other flood areas, especially the Butts Pond area. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marjorie Johnson, and on deck is Dana Rhymes.
Marjorie Johnson, 122 South Beach Street. I would like to take this opportunity to commend Commissioners Ken Strickland and Monica Paris for the outstanding job that you're doing representing your constituents and also answering all my concerns. You are doing the best of the best, and I'd like to say to each of you to keep up a good job and the good work that you're doing here. I'm concerned also about, and I want you to be mindful of the problems that we're having with the flooding here in Volusia County. You need to solve this flooding problem. You have a lot of constituents and people in the neighborhood that are disgusted, and nothing is being done. I hear people talk about the Corps of Engineers. Well, the Corps of Engineers, and this is what we pay you to do, is to get this problem solved. Libby Coleman, that came here to the meeting, house was completely flooded, and she could not get back in it. It is still flooded. And so I would like to say to you that she's been coming to my house crying. And I said to her, this problem has been going on for years. And the city needs to make this a #1 priority. Also, I think that you need to look at people coming to this podium tonight. There was a lady came up here. She didn't even state her name. In the past, when we had other commissioners and other mayors and city manager, when people came to this podium, they announced their name and their address. We need to know their names and address if they're coming to this podium to speak. Also, I'd like to say to you that all advertisement that you're doing for jobs here in this city you need to find another way to advertise. You have one company that was doing the Dickerson Center. It's taking forever to finish the job. So I would like for you to do your job and get some advertisement. I don't want to say, well, we just got one answer. Well, I've had work done. I've owned my house for 53 years, and I'm a taxpayer. And I may get 10 or 15 estimates, and then I decide who I want to do the work. So we need you to be cognizant of the fact that we are watching you, and we are not happy. Now the yard there on Key Street in the 200 block is up to 6 feet again. That's part of the read zone. Every meeting I have to come to and mention that. I should not have to come to this podium and tell you how to do your job that we are paying you to do. Service is the price you pay for the space you occupy. Thank you. Thank you. Get your job done.
Sit down.
Our next speaker is Dana Rhymes, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Well, I noticed one thing. She has not thanked us for the $20,000 roof we just put on our house that she's lived in for 55 years.
Congratulations. Okay. Silence. Let's go.
Excuse me. Good evening. Dana Rhymes Jones, Tuscany Woods Homeowners Association. A little history with our association and why so many of us were concerned is because in our PUD, it requires that masonry wall. And when KB Homes was the last builder and they left us, all they put up was the cheapest wooden fence possible. So last year when we went to go replace the fence, we were denied a permit because the PUD says there's supposed to be a wall. But thanks to Mr. Morris and the city manager, we were, excuse me, ma'am.
Miss, you got to stop there.
So thank you to those two gentlemen that we were able to work it out and we were able to do a more appropriate, aesthetically pleasing fence, but it was at the cost to our association of $33,000 and some change. Now, as this area continues to be developed, because it will, and we have other land where Strickland Range dead ends and goes back behind some of our other homes, we're just asking that we're part of that conversation with development. We really need to be part of the conversation when it comes to appropriate buffers, whether it's vegetation or a wall. There is a lot of land back there. I walk it myself in the wintertime, not this time of year, too many rattlesnakes and too hot. But we do need to be part of that conversation, and we do know more is coming because we do know people have been back there already checking it out for future projects. We are concerned with additional traffic, also with the land on LPGA that would, on the backside would be on Strickland Range. We're asking that those developments, as they come down the pike, have their two entrances on LPGA. Please don't keep putting more access roads onto Strickland Range. One of the things that makes our area so appealing to folks is it is a very nice walking area, you know? So we're trying to keep that and keep that lifestyle. I get it, we're no better than anybody else. However, since things haven't happened back there, we're trying to be proactive and come to you as your constituents and just, you know, think ahead, think outside of the box. We don't want to infringe on any other property owner's rights. However, we just all want to collaboratively work together and try to come up with some solutions to just do it better, to just do it, and it'll be more pleasing for the new development as well as the existing development. So, and a little more marketable for both sides. That's all we're asking. I do thank you for your time. I do also ask, we will need some help with parking issues. Our streets are city-owned. However, our CCNR say no street parking, and we're having quite an issue to where it's causing safety issues to where like a fire truck or an ambulance wouldn't even be able to fit. And when we try to address the issue as a HOA, unfortunately, people come back at us about it being city-owned streets. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you again, Commissioner Henry. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
VHR. Also, on the buffer, it's in our land development code. They require there's 3 options, but the city commission does not get to choose that. It's the developer, correct?
Yes, as long as they meet our LDC codes, we bring that forward to you all, and you all decide yes or no to approve, but you can't just go on the outside because individuals want to. We have to abide by our LDC codes.
Correct. Okay.
And what are they saying?
I don't have that off the top of my head too. It's a wall of, I don't have it all.
I don't know the buffering, but each group gets to have a buffering that's been approved by our LDCs whenever sometimes developers go further based on their interaction with neighborhood meetings. So that's pretty much, I'll make sure that Ron Morrow knows what our LDC requirements are, that when they have that discussions, if it goes beyond that, they don't have to do beyond what our LDCs require.
I'll send it.
We should make the LDC say that it should be congruent with what they already have.
But they don't have anything. That's the problem. I'm going through it right now. When
They
we had
don't have anything?
No, buffer, not yet.
Oh, because there's nothing there yet.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why in our land development code, it's required, there's 3 options, but the developer gets to choose the option, because I'm going through that as of right now with LPGA.
Well, let's get rid of the raunchy options and review the options.
Okay.
Okay, let's bring them up. They need to do more.
Can we put that on our agenda? Because I'm having the same situation.
Yeah.
Because we can't, like staff, they cannot require the developer to put that in. Let's say my residents want a wall, but the developer says, no, I don't want to do a wall. I want to do whatever it is, some shrubs. Correct.
Yeah.
So if we could bring that back.
If you demand more from developers, you will get a better product.
Correct.
It's just that simple. So we should review things and find ways to demand more, because we have to live with these products. And some of them I don't like. Some of them I do, but others I don't,
So Letitia,
Okay.
if I send that to you tomorrow, you'll send it to the commission, and then we can bring it back through and talk about it. Okay.
I just have a question for the city manager. How is it possible that their developer didn't build a wall? Is that what she just said? And that you guys helped her? The initial developer?
No.
She just said that there was a wall that they had to spend $35,000 to build because the developer
They
didn't build
wanted
it.
a wall and they didn't have to build a wall.
Oh, because they wanted,
For that development.
Come here.
For the
Come here.
testimony, Chase.
Yeah, but it doesn't require the developer to build the wall. How did they get away without,
I don't know. All I know is none of the commissioners that are sitting here now were on this commission, and also none of those that are the directors or assistant directors were in that planning, in your planning department at the time. We did meet, I believe the gentleman was Mr. McLemore, if I'm saying his name more. Okay, so that's who we met with, myself and a few residents, and we were told they absolutely did not have to put up this wall. However, when we went to put in the permit for a vinyl fence, because now this cheap wooden fence had served its life, we were denied because the PUD says there needed to be a wall. So I reached out, and again, your staff was wonderful. They were doing their jobs. We all had discussion. Mr. Morris got involved, and then I believe Mr. Morris reached out to you, Mr. Fiacher.
I know exactly.
So with that process, we were able to not have to, pay any fees to the city to do any kind of special amendments or anything, but we did have to pay $33,000 for a fence. Now, we did speak with our legal at the time, and they advised us that we would probably spend just as much in legal fees fighting KB to put up this wall. Because originally it was Mercedes as the builder.
Remember that with KB Homes.
And there were some other issues, because there were some houses that were built on lots too small, and they had to come back before the commission and get variances for those lots, and everything's fine now. But again, there is still a section of Phase 2 that's wooden fences, and we have told them, since that's not community area, it's totally just backs up to the private owners, that they're responsible, they can put up their own fencing. My thing is, though, as this area moves forward with development and Flomish dead ends into this property, if Flomish extends any further, and I'm not a road and bridge person or anything, it's coming very close to homes unless they turn it to go somewhere else. So I'm just asking that everyone, as development comes in that area, we look at more vegetation and a wall, just so, because we did one night have a car running from police and dead end into Flomish and explode.
We do require, but it's up to the developer. We have 3 choices, so if you want to bring that back,
Yeah,
we'll
we're
look at it.
gonna make it better.
Because
Okay.
I believe that the city staff should have the choice of what we
Not the
should.
developer, because
Correct.
they take the cheapest way.
And I do recall now.
Okay.
your
Right,
subdivision.
right. So that's why some of us were so emotionally challenged and, had a lot of questions, because
You got stiff.
we've got stiffed, for lack of a better.
Yeah.
So we do appreciate y'all's time, and we all love our community very much, and we're just wanting to make sure there's a good product out there. Because I plan to live and die here. So,
Thank
All right,
you.
thank y'all so much.
Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is Jenny Nazak.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. In August of 2022, I sent an email asking for certain improvements to Lenox Park. Some things are in the works, but there are two major items that have not been addressed or even considered as far as I can tell. Now, since COVID funds are happily going to be used to do a sunshade in Esplanade Park, I would request that maybe people would like to donate COVID funds to do sunshades over the dog benches, the benches in the dog parks at Lenox Park. Those dog parks, there's one for big dogs, little dogs, they're very heavily used. And they need to be able to have the people sit in the shade and the dogs sit in the shade. And as far as I can tell in random conversations I've had with staff, the issue is money and getting it planned. But it's been a year and nothing has even been mentioned about having it happen. The other thing that there's mixed feelings about by the residents who live around the park would be a public restroom in the park. And that some people really want it, some people not so much. But a small public restroom could be very useful in that park. There's a play structure for small children. There's no place around there for anybody to go to the bathroom. And so then they're going to start going in the bushes. So, we could have a small bathroom that gets completely locked up at night. But I think that park is heavily used and it needs a little TLC to make it more friendly. Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Jenny Nazak, and on deck is Linda Smiley.
Jenny Nazak, 501 Harvey. There's so many great things going on around here. One unfortunate thing, unfortunately, on July 4th, scientists determined that we had the hottest day on planet Earth in 125,000 years. And so, apparently, and well, nobody had to test that. We all knew how hot it was, right? So I'm really glad to hear people talking more about vegetation and the importance of sponge cities, the various sponge and preserving the wetlands and all that. Wetlands are unique. If you compare a dug out pond with mowed grass to a wetland that's full of pockets and trees and stuff, there's no comparison. That one has so much more photosynthesis going on, sucking heat out of the air, and there's so many more interactions going on. So as much as we can preserve, the better. And then as much as we can retrofit some trees. All the parks need trees. And of course, heat is a core determinant of flooding, but also heat is just a plain public health emergency in general. And we're getting to the point where, we have to have shade and we have to have benches. There have to be periodic, in an urban place, there have to be periodic places to sit, just like there have to be public restrooms. And people can say, well, those might get misused or the homeless people might use them. It's you know what? We just need more benches. Everybody needs to sit down. We're just broiling out here, and people need to take a rest, and there does need to be shade. Here's the thing that I found. The U.S. Department of Energy has a weatherization assistance program, and they are giving out grants to local governments and nonprofits and things. So I will email you guys about that so you can pursue those funds. Apparently, it can be up to $2,600 per house of things like air conditioning improvements and insulation improvements and so on. So I'll send that over your way. And what else? That should do it. Oh, okay. And my house. All right, my house is 501 Harvey. 501's easy to remember, like the jeans. And it's at the corner of Harvey and Oleander. Many of you have seen my house. Now, my house has some public amenities. On the corner, there are benches where anyone can sit, and they're under trees. So it's actually like a public cooling station where people can experientially experience what walking out of the broiling sun and under the trees. And since I'm there, like, I always hear people comment, like, it's so much cooler here, and they notice it. And there's also a little dog bowl, so if people's dogs get thirsty. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Our next speaker is Linda Smiley, and on deck is John Birch.
Linda Smiley, 357 Manhattan. Okay, I'm going to start to sound like a broken record, but I'm looking for an update on the City Island Rec Center and the Peninsula Club. It's been over a month now since somebody first asked about the City Island Rec, and it's every meeting I wait patiently to hear an update, and I don't hear one. It would be very nice if we could have follow-up, as I've mentioned before, to issues that residents bring up. It makes us feel like you've actually heard us and that you're working on something for us. Okay, the Midtown concerts are wonderful. And can we get L.A. Robinson to come back since he got rained out? Oh, good. And I think I saw something about a game night somewhere. I thought I saw a little blurb about it. But maybe at Yvonne Scarlett, but well, I don't know where I saw it, and I don't know how to find it again. So maybe we could get those kind of things advertised or the information out there a little better. Senior Oasis. I saw something on Facebook come through from Sunnyland, I think it is. So my question is, where are these Senior Oasis? When are they held? I thought I saw it's one day a week.
Scarlet Golden Center, Dickerson Center, Cherry Center, Schnebley. During the summers, they're not open. One day a week, they all have their own day.
Okay, so that's it, one day?
Hmm?
One day, that's it?
That's what they do. It's a great program. That one day is a great day. And then they go on trips and do things that the city pays for.
Okay.
What is your suggestion?
Oh, so you could move around to all of them if you
choose.
If you wanted to, okay. Huh?
Oh, that's the only one that's maxed out.
Okay. Well, I know that they have I know that Ormond and Holly Hill both have their own like big center that seniors can go to, and it's every day of the week.
They can go every day of the week there if they choose to go. But I believe in having centers that use that interface with everyone, and that there's not a distinction between young and old. That's just it's a personal preference. Generational centers.
Okay. All right. Well, what do we have available for our middle school kids? This is a very tough age. We need more activities for them other than basketball and the Riverfront Esplanade. Activities there. I remember seeing like in December the Christmas to Remember, but I never saw any other activities advertised. Do we have movies in the park? Is there anything planned? I mean, do we know anything about that? Because it's a mystery.
If you go on Facebook, they have quite a bit of stuff because they post it each month. Right.
Well, I never see anything, and I'm on there all the time, and I never see anything, so I don't know how they're doing it, but it's.
If you, when you go, get ready to go walk to the island, there's a big poster of everything that's going on for the month right there at the Esplanade. If they're having movie night.
But if you don't walk there, then you have no way of knowing.
Right.
Linda, it's on their website also.
It's online.
People have to
Ms.
go.
Smiley. Okay.
People have to go online to find things. We're not going to just be able to just chase people down to let them know what's going on in the community. You got to be proactive about going online and finding what's going on. There's plenty of things to do. There's so much to do. There's a STEM program going on for the middle schoolers, and the city has plenty of things for everyone to do. You just have to be proactive about going on and finding all of the events that we have going on.
Okay. Our next speaker is John Birch, and on deck is Sandy Murphy. Yeah, I think it did.
John Birch, 36 Orange Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida. How you all doing? Praise the Lord. All right, first thing I got to apologize. The officer was not here last week, Officer Bow. We got it straight. He was thinking that I knew something that I didn't know, and I was thinking that he knew something that he should have known. Okay? So we worked it out. So I came first to apologize because I know you were looking at me like, well, why am I looking? And I talked to him. He said, Officer Bow's on vacation. So I want to do that first because if I die, I'm trying to do the right thing because I got issues. All right, next thing. You see this? I'm a working man.
Yes, sir.
I'm a working man. I got my bicycle out the door and I ain't broke. And guess what? I don't smoke no drugs, but I live in the drug hole. So what do? I'm judged by how I look. Uh-oh. That's kind of hard. And I come to address you, Mr. Mayor. You know me, I love you, but I don't love some of the things you do. One thing I got to address is, forgive your daddy. Because I came from a family that we kept stuff inside. And a lot of people, all y'all talk about psychological and all that kind of stuff. A lot of families got issues, especially black folks. You know why we got issues? Because we don't want to talk about it. And we don't want to go to a psychiatrist. Your daddy loved you. And I see your daddy, we bought my daddy a truck. When he got up in the age, he didn't ride around in a hot truck. He had a raggedy truck. Everybody knew he was riding around helping people, but he was hot. So sometimes you got to forgive your parents. You know what I mean? And I got family issues. That's what I talk about because that's most of y'all mental. All y'all gonna probably go crazy too, but I ain't going crazy because I'm happy. Because I learned that God put me on this earth to glorify him. And our parents, we had nothing to do with what they did. So when I see your daddy riding around and I go to church on Sunday evening and I know how hard he worked, you should try to do better yourself because you are a very nice young man. And like Michael Jackson, they wonder why he went out early. Honor thy father and thy mother that thou what? Days. You understand? You had nothing to do with it. And that goes for some of y'all other people. Look at me like you want. I can look at you. All I tell all y'all is, it ain't all about that. Y'all up here, but God is the head. So I'm just telling y'all, just try to do the right thing. It's all real. I'm getting on my bicycle. Bye.
Now,
Oh, my glasses.
yeah, get your glasses.
Okay, me and you all right.
Get your glasses. Because
Okay, our last speaker tonight is Sandy Murphy.
36 Park Avenue. I just wanted to let the public know about Beachside Neighborhood Watch meeting coming up this week. It's tomorrow night at 6:30 at Our Lady of Lourdes. People from everywhere in the city are invited. You don't have to be a Beachside resident. We will have police reports, code reports. We are hearing from, we have representatives of 2 different businesses coming to talk to us, Beachside businesses. One is coming in the form of free pizza from Chris Mavronis from his new Harry's Pizza joint in the Ocean Walk, and it's delicious if you haven't been there. And the second will be Phaedra Lee from Main Street Station. He'll be coming to tell us a lot about what it is, the programming that they do there. It's not just a bar. There's a lot of other things going on, and she's going to talk to us about that. So everyone's invited, 6:30 tomorrow evening, Our Lady of Lourdes. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Is that our final speaker?
That was our final speaker.
Okay. Good night, Daytona Beach.